And I'll add in a male voice, welcoming everyone from around the world to this wonderful event and sending my blessings and greetings from England.
Thank you, Suta, for joining us. So we have Suta and Ma Ananda Sarita joining us for today's session, today's very first session for Sexual Education Summit 2020. Welcome all of you from Evolved Beings and Sexual Education Summit. Thank you for taking out this time to join us. And we shall begin now. Firstly, just to tune in at it's a Sexual Education Summit. Let's just see and feel what this word sex means for all of us, for us. So just feel this word sex in your body, in your sensations, in your feeling. What does it feel for you when you say this word sex? How does it feel for you? What kind of sensations it brings for you? What kind of thoughts maybe it brings for you? How does it feel for you, this word sex? Does it bring up any kind of fear or any kind of maybe repulsion or maybe ecstasy or some tingling sensations in your genitals or some energetic flow in the body? How does this word sex feel for you? Just taking this moment to arrive here fully in your body, as this is a sexual education summit. So let's be here, totally here and now, and feeling how this word sex feels for me. What does it mean for me? Sex. And breathe into this word sex in your body when you say it. Sex. Let yourself just bathe into this word sex and just feel completely how does it feel for you. And you can comment whatever it is for you in the chat box. How is it for you, this feeling and sensations to feel? When you are ready, just if you like to share in the comments. Some sexual must be nice. So just breathing in, and whenever you are ready, just open your eyes and you can share how it is for you in just 1 or 2 words. Deep connection with myself, amazing exercise. Thank you, everybody. Somebody just asked if Ma Ananda Sarita knows Hindi. Maybe just few words. Sarita, would you like to say something on this? She has spent many years in India, but I let her speak on this.
Namaste.
Yeah, thoda thoda Hindi.
Thoda Hindi.
Yeah. So let's start and welcome all of you and welcome Ananda Sarita and Suta to Sexual Education Summit 2020. I know probably Ananda Sarita and Suta since I started my journey 9 years ago in this lifetime in Tantra, and I met them in Thailand, Copenhagen, and I was taken aback with their presence and their teachings and their whole aura, what they carry with themselves. And I know them since then. And Ananda Sarita is a world-renowned Tantra master, expert coach, and has been guiding many souls to this path of self-realization and empowered sexuality. She is the founder of Tantra Essence, which And she runs, I think probably she's teaching 365 days in a year before lockdown.
Yeah.
All around the world. So she teaches many retreats, sessions, online, offline, and she is full power into Tantra teachings and motivating many lives. And she has spent 26 years personally with Osho, receiving the direct transmission under his guidance in Pune 1 and Pune 2. So she was there under his guidance. So thank you so much, Sarita, for sharing this light with us and being here today with all of us. Thank you so much. And we have Suta with us, who is a breathwork coach and the Tantra teacher, and also facilitate darkness retreats. Very interesting. I also know him since many, many years, and he's really one of very genuine, I would say, Tantra male teacher and expert I have seen and found in this field and work and areas. So, and he's a lead male teacher in Tantra Essence. He's also a co-creator in many of the trainings, such as Tantra Man training, Sex to Super Consciousness training, and Tantra teacher training. So he has been also teaching since last 20 years or more worldwide into many countries. So thank you, Suta, joining us from your space. I can see you are in some alien space today. Where are you calling from? It doesn't look like England.
So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for such an elevating introduction.
So let's start. And so as our topic of discussion for this particular first session of Sexual Education Summit is orgasm, pleasure, and eros. So maybe you can throw some light at what kind of sex education is needed when it comes to orgasm, pleasure, and eros as an individual and as a parent also, to give this kind of education to our children. So maybe let's start with, as an individual, what one must know about orgasm, pleasure, and eros. So maybe Suta, you can talk more on masculine aspect, and Sarita, you can cover on feminine aspect. And if something is remaining, then you can cover it up.
Okay. Is Suta starting?
Yeah,
ladies first.
Start.
Oh, really? Okay, so, I've taught in 15 countries, and I've connected with people we have more than 15 countries here now. And something that I think is very sad and very apparent is that there's virtually nowhere where we are given a really full and wholesome sexual education. So I think that when we're creating an event and we're gathering together like this to share information, this is a really positive thing. It's a much needed medicine in the world. And my personal approach has been to immerse myself in the teachings and the practices of Tantra. And for so many years, those teachings have been rather secret or driven underground, because the Tantric teachings basically are saying, hey, there is a better way to live. There's no condemnation in it at all. It's so full of love that there is a better way to live, and that way is your birthright. It's available for each and every human being. And we carry a kind of coding, and part of where we can access our love, joy, power and knowledge is through sex and the erotic. And I think the original Tantra masters realized, they had an incredible insight, that the state that we enter into through orgasm is a really potent and incredible magical state. The ego is dissolved. The sense of separation is dissolved. We enter a state of vulnerability. We enter a state of emotional flow. And we can open ourselves to inspiration. And that state is so different to the life that we think of as ordinary life, as our ordinary self. So there's something about that state that the essence of it is magical. And there's something about that that's kind of inherently threatening to the ego and to our structures. And so people in power, people who want control, and people who create the education system have kind of cut humanity off at the roots so that we're not able to access this basic feeling of okayness and of being at home inside, where we are experiencing ourselves as a oneness. So having said that, it's still very, very rare for us to go through schooling and have a good sexual education. And more on the planet, from the seeds of these tantric masters, from the seeds of people who've had insights and out of real lived experience, are growing schools and sharings and gatherings such as this, which hope to help people be inspired and informed and evolve into the fullness of our sexual potential. So as an adult, it's the responsibility of each one of us to realize, to recognize there's something more. If you have that sense that there's something more for me, a yearning for a deeper sense of aliveness and connectedness and being at home in yourself, then it's down to you to follow that, wherever it's going to take you. Find out what makes your heart sing and what you resonate with, and go there and absorb and learn from people who have just gone a little bit ahead. I learned a lot through being with Sarita, for example, and Sarita absorbed in the presence of a living master, Osho. So this is the way that flame of transmission in Tantra has always been passed along. It's through a transmission of being. And it's also useful to have an education that includes information, for example, about anatomy and physiology, that takes into account and respects the differences between male and female, men and women. So that's something to address how we as adults can go through that. And if you'd be so kind as to give me a few moments, I'll speak a little bit as well to how we might foster such an optimum learning situation for our children. You know, the children are the future of this world. So basically, we come into the world as pure life force, purely innocent, and in a state of total wonder and aliveness to the mystery of life. You look at a baby, an infant, it's just going, wow, about everything, about its own fingers and toes, about light, about mama, dada, about pets and flowers. Now, unfortunately, wow includes ow. So there's pain in this world. This world, the human constructed world, the way that we experience the society that we've created through mind and control and rules and so on, is so different to our essential nature as a free spirit and soul. So one of the main jobs, I think, of a parent is to allow the spontaneity and aliveness and trust the life force of the child, and to affirm its essential goodness. And then basically to keep affirming that your impulses, they're good. The things that you desire, the things that you're interested in, you're good. And to do whatever we can to minimize anything that would create fear and guilt and shame in the child. And then the child will flower, because that is part of our blueprint as human beings, is to just blossom like a flower does in the morning sunshine. So I hope that answers your question in some measure.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Suta, for bringing up the overall perspective of, sex education missing in the system overall, and how it is cutting our roots and to ourselves, to our own bodies. And maybe, in the next question, we will go more deeper to differentiate between the masculine and female orgasm and pleasure, and how it is a little bit different, yet complementary to each. Yeah. And Sarita, would you please like to say something on sex education in terms of
Yeah.
orgasm, pleasure, and eros? Yeah.
So I've noticed that in countries where there is a very minimal sex education, or maybe there's no sex education, there's a frequent occurrence of teenage pregnancy. Because if you don't have knowledge and understanding, then you're bound to just follow whatever biology is saying. And so in the more repressive cultures, there will be more instances of accidental pregnancies. I came across one friend who Suta also knows, who's from Finland, and she was telling me how she received sex education. And this is a big contrast, that when she was, I think she was 12 years of age, she received a package of information in the post from the government. And in that package, it was giving clear instruction about the human sexual anatomy, instruction about how to masturbate, instruction with a condom included, and showing like a diagram how to put the condom, telling her to practice on a cucumber. And she said that by going through all of this, it was very exciting, and she went into all this information, she tried it out. And then she said in Finland, they have the lowest occurrence of teen pregnancy because the teenagers are informed. In today's world, it's a tragedy because there is so much porn exposure for children, and yet there is not an adequate sex education. So what that means is children are learning about sex from a very wrong source, because pornography is not based on reality. It is based on some mentalized form of sexuality that has very little to do with actual lovemaking between a man and a woman. In fact, it's going in a more negative trend. And so children are being raised with this porn. The exposure is becoming younger and younger. It can be very shocking. It can create sexual trauma. And there was one study done that found out that 50% of boys had become impotent by the age of 20 from too much overdose of porn. That was a study done in Australia. And because boys start around the age of 10, maybe now it's even younger. And this is a tragedy. So we need to offset this with a very good sex education, which actually starts at a younger age. Now, in regards to Eros, our bodies are erotic from birth to death. We are erotic beings. We have 5 senses. We love pleasure. According to a scientist named Candace Pert, who wrote The Molecules of Emotion, the human organism is hardwired for bliss. Now, if we're not finding that bliss within ourselves, we will search vicariously for it on the outside through some kind of addictions that will give a kind of shadow form of bliss, but will not give us the real thing. So there is a natural striving towards bliss from a very young age. And in some Scandinavian countries, one of the ways they are addressing this is really beautiful, is to have an education in the preschool and moving into kindergarten, where the children are learning massage. So from a very young age, they learn to exchange conscious touch, conscious massage. And it was found that those children are more adaptable in the classroom. They learn better, they are more intelligent, they're kinder to their fellow students, they're more loving in general, they're more curious about life and more joyous. So this is one way you can start with a tantric based education, is by introducing conscious touch and also consciousness in all of the other senses. There are very beautiful tantric meditations where you can apply the principles that are inherent in Tantra of meditativeness and lovingness, weaving these together and applying it to the different senses, whether that be through the visual sense or maybe through tasting, smelling, maybe through hearing. So you can offer children different forms of meditation that involve the senses. And indeed, in the accelerated learning technique, this is a type of learning where there have been a lot of scientific studies done about how to learn faster. For example, you want to learn a language, how can you learn it in triple speed? And they found out that one of the secrets for learning in an accelerated way is 5-sense learning, where all the senses are included in the learning. And another aspect of that will be to lay down and rest and listen to Baroque music. And another aspect, which I think you'll find very funny in terms of this summit, is to hear a dirty joke. And when somebody hears a dirty joke, automatically all the senses become very alive, and the learning that's being given to the person will immediately go to the deepest part of the brain. Because usually learning takes 7 repetitions before it goes in. But in this way, the learning goes directly in. So this accelerated learning technique is very interesting. And now I just like to bring in something that Osho says, which I find really fascinating, that if you teach meditation to children from a young age, it's not that you just tell them you sit and meditate. Of course, the parents, the caregivers need to meditate themselves. That creates an example. And then the children learn meditation. And by doing that, it will automatically open the central channel between their sex center and their spiritual center. And when the hormones start pumping around the age of puberty, those hormones are looking to find out what is the greatest high my hormonal capacity can take me to. And if that central channel has been opened through meditation, automatically the energy that is in the genitals will start moving in and up into full body orgasmic states. And otherwise, if children do not learn meditation and they only have the option of moving energy down and out for the purposes of procreation, there will be a tendency to go after vicarious modes of ecstasy, like drugs, fast cars, and joining gangs and different kinds of things that can become destructive, or pornography. But if that central channel has been opened, there will be a natural tendency to want to explore tantric spaces where sex and samadhi become one. There is a saying in Tantra, sex and samadhi are one. And so an education which is based on meditation and 5 senses will open the child to this possibility. And then the other thing is, of course, not to be prudish. The parents need to let go of their prudishness. For example, I consider it a crime that children see violence in the home. They see parents shouting, screaming at each other. They see violence on television, but they don't see scenes of love. They don't hear sounds of inner ecstasy from the parents. They are, you know, all of that is hidden as if it's something dangerous, as if it's something to be guilty about. And then they can't receive a positive imprint around the sexuality. Another thing which is very important is to give the children only what they are ready for at any given time. For example, if a child is 3 years of age and they're asking, what is this between my legs? You're not going to give them a 3-hour discourse on all about sexual anatomy and this and that. You'll give them exactly what they've asked for. What is this between my legs? If it's a girl, this is your yoni. It's so beautiful. It has pleasure and joy, and you can really appreciate and enjoy this. So you listen to what they are asking, and then you give them that much information that they are actually indicating they need. Now, you also need to be alert, because sometimes a child has been sexually abused without the parents knowing. So they might ask a question which is revealing that they know more than they should know at that age, and that they may be asking for clarification. And then you need to take them a little deeper into that subject and try to find out if they've been harmed in any way, if everything's okay, and to make sure they have the information they need to avoid sexual predators. So there are different levels of sex education according to what the child is ready for. And then for the fully activated sexual education, where you're showing diagrams and you're talking more in depth, that would be from approximately 9 years of age, somewhere around 9-10 years of age. But if they've been exposed to porn earlier, you might have to have that conversation earlier.
Thank you so much, Sarita. I'm just thinking that Indian government might take a very long time, or I think our Scandinavian countries are very open when it comes to Sweden and Finland, that are on the school levels and government level, they take sex education very sincerely, and they make sure that people know about it and they are more aware about it. So probably the countries where they don't receive the packet, maybe the parents can make the packet. So you can,
Yes.
yes. So yes, and so what all? Maybe parents can get some quick tips. What all can they include in this surprise packet to their children?
You know, one of the wonderful things is to have diagrams of the sexual anatomy, and also showing the difference between girls and boys, and about self-pleasuring, and how self-pleasuring is so wonderful, and it can give rise to full body ecstasy, that this is something you can explore in private, that you know, if you start doing that in public, not everybody would understand that this is something amazing. So you affirm the amazingness and wonderfulness of that, but then invite them to explore in private. And then also describe how sex and love are interconnected, so that they already get a feeling that there's something wonderful to look forward to by being with an intimate partner. Because nowadays, in the world of Tinder, it's like a minefield out there, that children will grow up thinking that sex is just a commodity. You go and you do it and you perform, and you know, and there's no feeling in there. So you want to emphasize the potential of lovingness, tenderness, and the deep, very deep union which is possible with another human being, and that it is a sacred act. And in India, for example, you can tell stories about Shiva and Shakti, and there's so many wonderful stories about Shiva and Shakti making love for 6 hours. And for example, Brahma and Vishnu are coming to do some business with Shiva, getting very pissed off because he's making love for 6 hours, and then cursing him, okay, now you're going to be known just by your linga. So then you have the phenomena of the Shiva linga. But there's so many beautiful ways of weaving this information in, how powerful lovingness is, how powerful Tantra can be, so that they are looking forward to that. And in the meantime, discovering their body and the art of self-pleasuring.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Really
And
wonderful light you brought to this subject. Yes, Suta, you want to
I
add?
would just add in one extra little thing. As the world changes and as human beings become more disconnected from nature, I think one of the keys for all of us and for children is to, let them see what happens in nature. So to see what's happening throughout the entire animal kingdom, what's happening with plants and flowers and trees. And children are very naturally curious and fascinated by those things. And, nature is just a living expression of Eros. It's like it's in a constant state of lovemaking in one sense. There's a way to perceive nature where it's in an ecstasy, and children very naturally can see that and love that and enjoy that. And so then we can bring in, as Sarita said, as is appropriate to the age, we can say some things about how human beings function, how human beings have certain parallels to the way that desire and sexual instinct operates in us, and that we also have a heart that loves and a spirit that can connect us to something greater. So I would just put in a voice for, how wonderful a teacher nature is.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
remember when I was a child, I was hearing a song on the radio and it made me so curious. What is that all about? The song was going, well, let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the stars up above and a thing
Thing
called
called
love.
love.
So I went
Yes,
and asked my mother, what is it about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees? And then she was teaching me about pollination, but she was a little bit prudish, so she didn't take it into this discussion about sex. And I wish she had, because as Suta was saying, nature is such an amazing teacher, because everywhere is dancing in the art of sex, actually. What are
Mm-hmm.
the trees
Yeah,
doing? What are the animals doing? The birds, the bees, they all doing it.
yes, rightly said, Suta. And we can learn. I have seen, at times dogs making love, and if you have seen snakes making love, you can learn
Mhm,
so much, like how the snakes are entwined and how the
mhm,
dogs, after having sex, they remain hooked up for a long time, so they don't separate immediately. And I was like really surprised to see that. I was like, what are they doing? And then I realized, and my partner told me, and I was like, wow. So it's like we can learn so much with nature, just being with nature, and we can start listening and be connected to our innate body wisdom, which is there, which is so much just there. So yes,
for sure.
sorry,
Mm.
yes, Sarita, though you covered, few of the points on how to enhance the pleasure, but maybe we can go more in details about the masculine and feminine pleasure, because there's a lot of stigma and taboo around female pleasure and also around masculine pleasure. Means the focus is generally to come and to release the energy. When it comes to male masturbation, the focus is generally just to release the energy. So how the one who are in male body can enhance their pleasure through masturbation, and how women, because if we see the statistics now during the sex education, we had been researching a lot on statistics. So probably in India, 1 out of 20% or 30% women, they don't know what orgasm is. 88% women in US do not get orgasm by hookup sex, and so many other different statistics which shows there is so much taboo around female pleasure as well. So what do you what how the female pleasure or male pleasure can be enhanced in practice?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some quick tips or exercise on day to day you can give to people as an individual to practice.
So you want Suta to go first or me to go first?
Ladies
Probably.
first.
Okay,
You know, there's a book, She Comes First. So go ahead.
That's very smart. He's giving the first tip. She comes first.
she comes first. That's a very good tip.
Very good tip. So I think for women to understand about her sexuality and about orgasm, we have to clear up some misconceptions. Is it okay if I clear up a couple of misconceptions?
Yeah.
I had to read through many boring anatomy books to find out all this information, and numerous studies on human sexuality, etc. But basically, there was a statement that Freud made, which was erroneous. It was false. He said, if a woman is infantile, she needs to have her clitoris touched. And if she is a real woman, she will orgasm from penetration alone. So Freud made this statement, which is not factual, but then it went into the mainstream of society, and it's still torturing people in today's world. So millions and millions of people have had their sex lives destroyed only by that one false statement. Later on, Masters and Johnson did a lot of research in the laboratory on human sexuality, and they especially wanted to find out if this statement that Freud made is true or not, and they found out it's not true. So I'm going to explain that there are three elements involved in the orgasm. One, this is in the woman I'm talking about. One is the clitoris and clitorial network, comes into full arousal. Then comes a nerve in the sacrum that will be the trigger for orgasm to happen, and contractions happen in the vagina. So these three elements will always be played out in any orgasm. Of course, there are different variables within orgasm where the intensity of the energy will be felt more in one or different place in the body. Now, there's a misconception also about the clitoris. A lot of people still don't know that there's much more to the clitoris than meets the eye, because what we see at the vulva area is just a small button, and people think of that as the clitoris. However, that's just a little tip of the whole clitoral network. The clitoral network is mainly inside the body, so we don't see it. There are clitoral bulbs, clitoral legs. Also the vulva, the lips, the outer lips, inner lips are all connected into that clitoral network. It's the same size of erectile tissue as an erect lingam. So if you put all that erectile tissue together that is in the clitoral network, it will become the size of a penis in erection. And in order for the woman to be ready for penetration, that clitoral network needs to come into erection. It's just like if a man doesn't have an erection, it's harder to go into penetrative sex, isn't it? You can, but it's a little more challenging. So for a woman, it's also challenging. She can experience penetrative sex even if her clitoral network is not in arousal, but she will not experience orgasm through it, and she may experience even pain through that. So what is very important is to offer the woman 20 to 40 minutes of erotic play before penetration to make sure that her whole body is connected into that orgasmic flow. And in general, like an all-over body approach for the woman works best. Holding, connecting with, caressing, sweet, loving words, eye-gazing, gift-giving, ritual space, soft lighting, candles, roses. All of this works very well to bring the woman into a state where she becomes more aroused. And this might sound very strange for men, because actually men are created exactly in the opposite way. One thing that's been found through brain studies, which I find very interesting, is that the woman is wired in such a way that for her, sexuality and heart go together. There's no separation. So in order for her to feel sexual, the heart needs to be included, and vice versa. That's why when people go for hookup sex, the heart is not involved. So how are they going to come into a full ecstatic orgasmic flow? That's not going to happen. They'll just allow their body to be used. Maybe they have a little pleasure just by having connection with another body, but it's not going to lead them into full body orgasmic states. And some people think, okay, what is the difference between clitoral orgasm, vaginal orgasm, G-spot orgasm, and cervix orgasm? So if there is orgasm with genital release, those 3 steps I described before are always going to be involved. However, the intensity may be felt at different areas depending on the woman, depending on the mood, depending on what's happening with her and her partner. So for some women, they will feel the orgasmic flow just locally around the clitoral bud. Some women, they will feel the whole of the vagina is pulsating in orgasmic joy. Some women, they feel the womb pulsating in orgasm. Some, it's more localized around the G-spot. And some women, they feel like their whole body has become one giant clitoris and that they are having full body orgasmic states. And of course, this full body orgasmic possibility links in to cosmic orgasm. So this is a very real possibility for women to experience cosmic orgasm on a regular basis if she can bring her orgasmic flow through the whole body. And then there's one other thing that's very important while I'm on the subject, which is about the number of orgasms a woman has, because women are wired a little bit differently. Some women, for her, it's very normal to have 3 orgasms, somebody else 6 orgasms, somebody 10 orgasms. And in order to know her orgasmic potential, it's really great if a woman can practice self-pleasuring, find out the position she likes, what gives her the most joy, what kind of touch, what kind of flow, how much time she needs, etc., etc. And then she can convey that to her partner. And I suggest to women, don't convey it during sex, convey it at another time, so that when you're in the sex, you can just go with the flow and really enjoy. But it's really wise to communicate with your partner, because women tend to think that the man will intuitively know everything she needs. And if he doesn't intuitively know it, she will get pissed off. But he can't possibly intuitively know everything you need, because every woman is slightly different according to what she needs. Some women need a touch directly on the clitoral bud. Some women around the clitoris. Some women don't get near the clitoris. Some women, it's just from touching the breast, they go into this orgasmic flow. So every woman is a little bit different and needs to communicate to her man about what she needs, how she likes it, and vice versa for the men to communicate with the women, obviously. Okay, I've said a lot. I think it's Suta's turn.
Let's hear about for the male bodies, how they can enhance the pleasure while
You know,
masturbating.
as I hear this description of the incredible range and glorious richness of female sexuality, it really makes it clear how this notion of Freud of penis envy is a total joke. You know, he's coming from just coming from a patriarchal view entirely. When I hear this, I've got complete yoni envy. So, you know, in most of the world, and the way that a lot of men are conditioned to operate and identify themselves, male sexuality does have a tendency, in comparison to what we've just heard, to be a bit more straightforward, a bit more simple. And, you know, we tend to think, for example, that men will have the capacity to have a single orgasm and then what's called a refractory or resting period. And then maybe at a certain time, they may be able to then build up to another orgasm. And that there's a focus in the male mind, or the male psyche can easily focus attention into the genitals. It's like that is what we call a positive pole, a home place, a root place for the masculine, for male energy. And so that's the place where energy gets ignited, and there's a real strong drive. There's a power to initiate things, to want to get things moving. Let's do it. Coming through the male genitals. So what can really help a man expand his capacity for pleasure? And men also have tremendous capacity for pleasure. And mostly we're only tapping into a small percentage, a small fraction of what is possible. And we can expand. In fact, maybe one of the meanings of the word Tantra is expansion. How can we expand? How can we be connected? So for a man, it may be then, yes, to receive attention and pleasure to the genitals, and the vast majority of men love that, but then to have that spread around the whole body, so that there's including the whole body as part of the sexual occasion, as part of the erotic experience, so that there's a full embodiment happening, so that you know, the man is there fully in his body and fully present in his consciousness, not just simply running a sexual program through the mind, that the mind is, there's a strong connection between the mind, and especially nowadays, as Sarita was saying, with the prevalence of pornography, that inflames the mind, and there's a kind of hookup from the mind to the sex. But there's so many other levels, so many other centers, energy centers in the body-mind that are kind of left out. So let's include them. Let's say yes to all these different levels. And that has to include the physical. There's something about including our animal nature that is real, and it's not to condemn that in any way. But also, can we expand and include a sense of emotional fluidity and sensuality, the sense of who I am as a person, and a sense of integrity and presence, who I am and what I am as a loving being with a heart that feels a sense of wanting to connect and care and compassion and love. Are my prayers, are my creative intentions, is my voice included? And is that being expressed also? Can I say what I want? Can I say what I want to create with you together? Because surely a sexual occasion is about something that's happening together with another, so that we're truly meeting, and we're letting go of our sense of separateness. Can we also open up to realms of deep, profound meaning and expansive vision through the sexual occasion, and then beyond that into a state of oneness? Each and every one of these levels can be included in men as well as women. Each and every one of them is a place where we can experience different kinds of orgasms. And so one first key for men is to learn that we don't just have to disperse our sexual energy down and out in an explosive type of orgasm, the ejaculation. We can learn how to contain and transmute our energy so that we are able to maintain it and bring it in and up. And that up is part of a kind of ascension process so that we're evolving our consciousness and we're including more of who we are. And that means also seeing and relating with and loving more of what she is. And then that creates what we are being in a kind of beautiful union, which I think is the magical potential that everyone is seeking for in sex. Through the sexual revolution, we moved away from the old sexual ideas that sex is bad and wrong. There's a sex negative culture. Sexual revolution started to create a vision that sex is positive. That was an evolution, but it's also not speaking to the whole of our experience. It's a bit too simplistic. It's not got enough nuance and complexity that sex is only good. And then people like Masters and Johnson, they developed an idea, well, sex is neutral. It's just a sort of biological drive. So, let's get over it and just kind of be okay with it. And there's a truth in that, and there's a limitation in that, because it's not the same having dinner with somebody as being in ecstatic embrace with somebody in bed. There's something about sex that touches us deeply. It goes so deep into who we feel ourselves to be. That's its potential. It touches us and the one that we're with and sharing with deeply. So part of the Tantra vision that I think is a great medicine for the world is that sex can be sacred and that sex is an expression of the erotic, which is an intrinsic part of God at play, the life force at play. So that to bring that back, men are the carriers of and the expressions of one half of this dance, and women are the complements and the partners and co-creators in this wonderful dance, which not only can make babies at the physical level, it can just create all sorts of things. That's its intrinsic potential. Is it can create emotional flow, it can inspire you, it can inspire poetry and song, it can make you feel confident and powerful, it can gift you with visions. It's a magic, and we need to set that magic free in each and every one of our bodies and in our partnerships, in our families and the world.
Wow, beautifully covered.
Bravo. And I would just add to that it can actually help us to create heaven on earth. Because if we find a heavenly union with our partner, then we will want to find a heavenly union with all of life, heavenly space with all of nature, with all of life. And we will want to worship and create beauty. And we can see this so powerfully in India with the ancient, beautiful, sacred temples, the Tantra temples, and the sculptures, the architecture, the way of life that we see depicted by the ancients is very integrated with sexuality and spirituality coming together. And I think we need to return to that state. Of course, each time that we return to that garden, which is our potential, we bring more awareness and we can lift it up even higher. So we're facing that challenge in today's world because we've gone about as low as we possibly can in terms of politics and whatever is going on with sexuality, repressions of all kinds and disputes. So that all needs to be healed. And one of the best ways to heal it is through what is being indicated by Suta, by all of us here at this summit.
Thank you so much, Sarita and Suta, for bringing, because the way you explained, it brought together also my next question on how to unite sex, love, and spirit. So I feel the way you explained on how to enhance the pleasure, it covered everything related to sex as samadhi, or union of sex, love, and spirit on individual and with the partner, both, how it can happen and how it is possible to live that in this world, in this physical body. Thank you so much. And as we are talking about, you ended up on healing. So many people, you know, maybe as a child or growing up, have experienced some kind of abuse, sexual abuse. So how they can bring, and you know, if they approach sexuality from that abusive state, it's still not healed. So how any kind of healing can happen so that they can, you know, they can be ready to open up to their sexuality again. What would you like to say on that?
You want me to speak or?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yes, ladies
Uh,
first. Let her come first.
okay. So this is a very potent question for me because I was a sexually abused child. And so I had to go on a healing journey to heal that. And I came to know from a very deep inner space what is entailed in healing and transforming that wounding that's carried inside. Because the problem is that it's not really a problem, but it can become a problem, that human beings are born with free will. The reason why we're born with free will is because we are born to adapt to the milieu that we are born into. It's theorized that every human being carries within them all the languages that exist. But according to what kind of family they're born into, what kind of culture, then they will grow up with that kind of mind, that kind of language, and that kind of approach to life. You have Eskimos living in the cold climate. You have Kalahari Bushmen living in the desert. You have people living in the jungle. We adapt to all different situations. Likewise, when we are born, just similar to a little chick, where a little chick comes out of the egg, the first thing it sees, it thinks is its mother. So a farmer is telling the story that the chick was born, the little chick saw his boot and believed that this is the mother and started following the boot everywhere. The same thing happens to humans, that whatever imprint we receive when we're born and in the first 7 years is imprinted into our limbic system with the interpretation by the limbic system. This is what love is. And this is what you need to adapt to. This is the world you are being born into. And this is love. Because our default is love. This is the default of every person, of all of life. So if you are born into a family where there is abuse, there is beating, there is shouting, screaming, that gets imprinted in the limbic system with the interpretation, this is my milieu and this is what love is. Then the child grows up and they will tend to exactly reproduce what they've received. That's how the world is so fucked up, because for generations, this kind of programming has been passed down and down and down the generations, and people keep on reproducing it unconsciously. It's an unconscious programming. So if we do not like the program we've received, we need to consciously deprogram ourselves from that, whatever it is that's no longer serving us. And that's done by emotional release, breath work, family constellation, color light therapy, meditation, Osho's active meditations. There's so many different ways that you can use to unwind wrong programming. And once it's unwound, you need to consciously bring in what is in tune with your soul calling, your true essence that you would like to have imprinted into your limbic system. And there have been studies in psychotherapy where they actually took people into the lab and studied what happens when they deprogram and reprogram and rewrite their script. And the cellular level records the new script as if that is what has happened. So that proves to us that it is possible to rewrite the script. And if you want to learn more about that, there's a very beautiful book, which is called The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart, where she's describing these scientific studies. So this is an incredibly good news. It means if you were programmed badly, you can unwind that and you can reprogram in a positive way. We will always have some program or other, so we can be helped to program in a very conscious, loving, ecstatic way. And this is really possible to do that. So I've done it myself, so therefore I know it's possible. And I've also helped many people to do that, because unfortunately many people have been abused as children, whether that's sexual abuse or beating or shouting, because shouting is also a form of abuse and creates an abusive pattern. And so it's a very serious problem in our world, one that needs to be addressed head on. And there should be places of healing where people can go who can just clearly say, I've been abused, I need healing, and receive the care that's needed to unwind and reprogram. And this can be applied also to criminals, because as you know, a lot of criminals grow up in a milieu which is breeding crime, like violence, drugs, etc. They grow up in ghettos where crime is very prevalent. So that becomes their default. They don't know any better, and then they just start reproducing. So the same system can be applied to criminals, where you unwind the wrong programming and you rewrite the script.
Yes, it takes practice and meditation, but it's possible. Suta, would you like to add something to that? We are just a little bit running out of time, but yes, please take your,
Yeah, Sarita covered it very well. I mean, basically, it's to reestablish a sense of trust, and done in an environment of care and love and respect. And I think some of the keys are about embodiment, landing in the body, which is a portal to being present rather than running in the pains and the woundings that we experienced in the past. And also, like in the mental level, it's things like, restoring the sense of sovereignty, that I, each one of us is the king and queen of this part of the universe, and giving ourselves a sense of permission, learning about what it is to have healthy boundaries, and having a sense of affirming our worth and the sense that we deserve good. We deserve the good that life has to offer. We deserve pleasure, and we deserve a healthy relationship. And so, as Sarita said, there are many methods, many therapeutic methods that can support us in this. Sometimes we might have the good fortune to just come into some relationship where that happens spontaneously. So it's always there as a possibility for us, yes.
And just to add, like Sutta, you've spoken so eloquently about this, and I just want to add that one of the key elements for releasing abuse is to go backwards in time, to relive this memory, and to say what you couldn't say then. So you release what is bottled up inside that you wanted to say or you wanted to do, and you do that, and then you automatically will release the tension and the anguish that's been repressed and bottled up inside.
Yeah,
And then
it's freeing up that energy that got frozen in the past.
Yeah. And then in that space that's been freed up, then you bring in the rewriting of the scenario and of the script. So this is to say it very simply, the steps that need to be done. And of course, there are so many different methodologies to support that. And maybe if you're giving some resources, Shrishti, we can just list some of the resources that are possible for that afterwards.
Yes, yes, please, we can. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons, you know, to address, I feel sex education is a very, very good weapon to fight sexual abuse, sexual traumas, sexual conditioning, sexual taboos, because what is needed is education, education at all levels, from parents, from schools, universities, in society. And this can create more awareness in children as well, or in the generations to come, to stop or to take care of sexual abuse in at least some ways. So thank you so much for outlining it in such a beautiful way. And we are running out of time, but I want you to now tell us a dirty joke.
Oh,
Give the chance. I'm sure you must be having a lot from Osho,
So
especially.
Sarita, she's the master of dirty jokes. I don't know any. So Sarita, could you can tell two, one on my behalf.
so Osho was a great rascal master, and he used to give these very high-flying spiritual discourse, and then he would tell a dirty joke. And as I told you, in accelerated learning, they recommend telling dirty jokes to get you very activated, and the learning goes into the deepest part of the brain. So I think Osho was using that. But anyway, I'll tell one that's very cute, first of all. This is about Doobie-Doo, the very handsome frog. So Doobie-Doo lived on the edge of a lake, of course. And one day he woke up in the morning. It was a sunny morning. He was feeling amazing. And he decided, today, it's the moment. I'm going to put on my new Yves Saint Laurent white swimsuit that will be shining in the sun. And he put on his Yves Saint Laurent swimsuit, and he started hopping around the lake. And who did he meet but a beautiful dragonfly? And he puffed up his chest and he said to the dragonfly, I am God. And the dragonfly just flitted her wings and flew away. Then he continued hopping around the lake, and he met a fish. So the fish was just swimming peacefully, and Doobie-Doo puffed up his chest and said, I am God. And the fish leaped in the water and swam away. Finally, he came to Doreen the duck, and he looked at Doreen the duck, puffed up his chest, and said, I am God. And Doreen the duck said, get off with you, you stupid jerk, you pimply-faced jerk. What do you think you're doing, hopping all around the lake and announcing, I'm God, I'm God? Like, get off with this story. And then at hearing these words, Doobie-Doo, the handsome frog, pulled down slowly his Yves Saint Laurent swimsuit. Doreen the duck looked in amazement and said, oh my God. So, did you get it? Good, very good.
Thank you. Sarita, I hope in your online, so we have two online courses, in fact, from Sarita, which is Master Lover and Tantra Goddess Essence course, which is the Tantra Goddess Essence course is only for women, and the Master Lover is for couples. So anybody who wish to go deeper into this subject of sexuality or exploring your sexuality, orgasm, pleasure, and eros, can refer or can check. Sarita, would you like to say shortly about these courses so we can take after this questions from the audience as well?
So the Master Lover online course is designed for both singles and couples. It's giving a sex education according to tantric principles. That's what it is in a nutshell. And the Goddess Essence online course is giving women the spiritual path for women as it is embodied in our sexuality, in our emotions, in our capacity for love, in our capacity for spiritual awakening. So in a nutshell, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to buy within 24 or within 48 hours, you can get a coupon of 10% discount, which is welcome 10. Sarah, maybe you can write welcome 10 as the discount code if anybody likes to get the course now. You can, Astia, check out the course. There is a link here which Sarah has shared. So please check out in the link. There are all the details there with the course curriculum in the detail and the tester and everything. You can refer there. And thank you so much, Sarita. And we are ready for any questions from the audience. If you have still any burning questions after such a beautiful conversations with Suta and Sarita, please please type in the comments in the chat box so I can read it out to them. There were two questions before I saw from somebody is at what age of the child from Nikhil Shah. Sarita did cover that in the conversation wherein she mentioned 9 to 10 years old, but it also depends on child to child because in these days as pornography, Tinder and all these affect a lot a child while growing up. So it could be also the individual needs of the child in what age group, but yeah, personally, Sarita, would you say I feel anything from 7 onwards, 7 or 8 onwards? Personally,
yeah. From 7 or 8 onwards, like if a child has been left untampered with, then 9 years of age would be normal. But if they've been exposed to porn or different elements like that, or they've been abused, then of course it has to come earlier. The education has to come earlier. But it can be as young as like 3 years of age. A child might ask to the mom, how did I get born? And it's very stupid to tell the child, oh, you came by a stork. That's ridiculous. Just say, you were in my belly and you came out from my yoni. And you were that small and now you're growing, you're this big and you're going to get bigger. So the child can already have a sense of wonder about this gift that's given by nature. Like it's fine to say that. And hopefully the parents are not prudish that they're all the time closed in front of the child, so child has no idea that boys and girls are made differently. You know, they should be aware that yes, boys and girls are made differently.
exactly. In fact, I feel the sex education or the foundation of sex education can be formed even when they are small, like 4 or 5 months. Like personally, I am a mother of 1.5-year-old, and watching, like even as a 5-month-old baby, he still loves, he just loves to touch his genitals while just lying down or being naked. And in general, I have seen in India, or it could be also other countries, especially when my mom is around, she would just try to wrap him quickly in the nappy or a diaper. And I'm like, no, please don't do that. If he won't touch himself, then who would else? So let him just, because it's very natural for the kids or the babies growing up to feel their genitals or private parts. So if at that time parents stop as they're growing up, even as a baby, it starts forming their sexual conditioning that this is something not to be touched, or this is something shame. And you know, the other day I saw babies on the beach and the other baby was like doing shame, 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 shame. So they feel this part as shame. They name this genital part as shame. And I was literally like taken aback that, because this is what as a parent unconsciously we do. We just start doing, if the child is naked or a baby is naked, we do shame, shame, shame. And this just sets in immediately their sexual conditioning. So yes, the sex education for children can begin the moment they are born, I would say. How we are how conscious we are as parents, what we are writing as a blueprint of sex education for them. Yes. Let's see what the other question. How you explain a kid without putting sexuality is something wrong, and either as natural as sharing this with everybody. I think we covered pretty much this question, so we can see what else we have. Yes, please, Sarita, you want to add something?
I would just continue on what you were saying about the masturbation among young children, because yes, it's very true that young children naturally masturbate even in the womb, like they've been doing some visioning inside the womb, and the babies are masturbating there, and they continue when they're born also, because for them it's not sexual, it's just pleasure. Like our body has potential for pleasure. We feel pleasure putting something in our mouth, and we feel pleasure putting something at the genitals. It's just normal. And so that shouldn't be stopped. That circuit, which I call the tantric circle between the sex center and the rest of the body, should not be stopped. Even the mother and the child, there is a tantric circle, because the mother has nerves going from nipples to clitoris. So when she's breastfeeding the baby, that is giving rise to pleasurable sensation, which means that then the signal is coming. This is something I want to repeat. I want to nurture my baby, and the baby is likewise feeling pleasure. You can see babies when they're suckling, they go into kind of ecstatic waves that look quite orgasmic. They're feeling that tantric circle between them and their mother. And then also you have to take into account that boys get surges of testosterone at different times. At birth, there's a huge surge of testosterone. Then there's another surge, I think it's around 9 months. And then at 4 years of age, a huge surge where they become very boyish. And whenever there's that surge of testosterone, they will automatically want to touch their genitals and to start feeling pleasure there. And nature is asking them to do that also because they need to stretch the foreskin. So nature wants them to play with the genitals, and that in turn gives space to the foreskin to expand so that the penis can grow properly. If they never touch their penis, foreskin can become too tight and not expand. They need to massage it. So if a parent feels embarrassed that the child is doing that just in the living room, they can just say, okay, that's fine, just do that while you're in the bath. So while you're putting the soap and the sponge and everything, you just play with your genitals in the bath or when you're in bed. So you can give them appropriate ways to follow this energy that will not disrupt being in the society, but never discourage them, never say shame or something. That's very bad. Like, this is something to be celebrated.
Thank you. There is another very interesting question. Aditi has asked us: does love is must for women to enjoy orgasm? So, is love must for women to enjoy orgasm? Suta, would you like to take it up? Though it's a women question, but
I can answer, but I feel I'm less well qualified than Sarita, since she's in
okay.
a woman body.
Yes, yes, okay.
So I can just say there were studies done on the male brain and the female brain. And there's 2 beautiful books about that. One is called The Male Brain and one is called The Female Brain. So it was found that women have in the brain, it's wired in women that sex and love go together. They're always going to be connected. Even if the woman is not intending that to happen, it will happen anyway. For the men, there are 2 separate boxes in the brain. One is for deeply bonded sexual union, which includes love. There's another compartment in the male brain, which is for opportunist sex. That means sex without love. Probably because nature wants him to spread his seeds all over the place. So nature has made it that way in the male brain, but not in the female brain, because the woman needs to bond with her mate, to be with the child for longer time, to have the protection of the mate while she's pregnant, giving birth and raising the child. So there is that discrepancy between men and women. Just as for example, the woman already has the nurturing instinct from when she's a baby. She already has it. Men, they will have a certain hormone that gets produced when he looks into the eyes of his newborn child. Then suddenly he will have a huge surge of this hormone that says, I want to protect this child for life, and I want to bond with this child and be deeply connected and intimate with this child. But that set of hormones will not come into play unless he is a father. So this is a discrepancy between men and women.
Thank you, Sarita, for taking up that question and explaining so beautifully. We have a next question from Sandeep. He says, despite of having everything that of basic needs, family, friends, etc., I feel like wasting my life. Feel a lot of discernment for no apparent reason. I have a deep longing for Tantra, but I don't know if I'm a right person either. Suta, would you like to say on this?
Sandeep, you're here on this call, and so that's an expression, I think, of something probably quite sincere in you, and you're asking a question from something within. You say you have a deep longing for Tantra. So if you have that as a sincere longing, then you are the right person, and you're the right person to take whatever the next step is on your path, on your journey, and know that you're not alone. I think there's something quite fundamentally off in the way that many human beings are living, because a shocking statistic is that every 40 seconds on this planet, somebody is taking their own life. That means that somehow love hasn't reached them, hasn't touched them. They've not opened themselves to receive love. And that's become so painful that they're willing to end their life. On top of that, many more people are attempting suicide, and it's not happening. And many, many people are living in a state of depression, unhappiness, misery, or even just as you're saying, you feel maybe there's a kind of emptiness, or my life is going by, I'm wasting my life. There's a yearning for something more. So trust that deep yearning that you have and follow it. And that means that you show up to things like this, you seek out not only information, but if you can find places where you really can be with like-minded people who have a growth orientation, a mindset, who can support you and give you encouragement, then things can start to shift and change, and you will experience more fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Suta. Shall we take the next question? Is from Astia. How to overcome sexual urge? Astia, maybe you can be a bit more clear what you mean by this sexual urge, or okay, meanwhile, yes, Sarita, would you like to say something? Did you?
So I don't know if I understand the question rightly, but what I hear you saying is, how can I overcome the sexual urge? Does that mean how you can stop or control the sexual urge? It sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
she's writing urge means sexual needs, that how can I
yeah.
overcome my sexual needs?
So the thing is that sexual need is given to you by nature as a gift. There's no need to overcome it. There's a need to understand it, to honor it, and to go into it consciously. So the difference that makes all the difference is to bring awareness and love to the sexual urge. You can make an amazing ceremony out of it. You can make a ritual out of it. where, for example, you go on a date with yourself, you give yourself compliments, you give yourself a special treat, maybe take yourself dancing, give yourself an amazing bath, tell yourself beautiful words of love, and go into a special erotic play with yourself, taking yourself into spaces that maybe you never dreamed could be possible previously, where you take your time and with love and adoration for your own body, you go on a journey into self-pleasuring. When you start honoring and loving your sexuality as a gift from God, it will reveal secrets to you of your potential that are just incredible. All that is divine is also encapsulated in our sexuality and in our sexual urge. This is how God is expressing through the human form. So it should never be condemned. There's nothing wrong with it. There's everything right with it. There's a very beautiful saying in Tantra, no mud, no lotus. And that indicates that the roots of the lotus of consciousness find themselves in the mud of our being, meaning our sexuality, our instinctual nature. And from there, the stem of the lotus will grow up through the chakra system, and the flower of consciousness will happen at the crown chakra. But if those roots are not in the mud, there will be no flower. And that's a way of saying that the roots of all of our spiritual aspirations are in our sexuality. So we need to approach sexuality with an honoring and loving and even worshipful attitude, and find out what it can reveal to us about our fuller potential to love, to be loved, and to open our clairvoyance and our universal consciousness, because it's the same energy, just being lived in different ways. So I hope you can really absorb what I'm saying and start the journey to loving yourself.
I'd just like to add, you said that sex is a gift from God. If we can fully realize and live the truth of that, then we become a gift. It transforms us. It has a transformative power. The opposite of the holy is not necessarily the unholy. The opposite of holy is superficial. Let's move towards something that's real and deep, and we can all do that. We can stop just looking at the surface of another being, only seeing them as a body. We can stop relating even to ourselves in a superficial way and start to soften into, drop into, surrender to something that's real and deep and true. And in that way, we become a gift to our beloved and to everyone that we come into contact with. So sex is not to be denied or suppressed. It's to move from unconsciousness and being mechanical about it to being more conscious. And in that, the divine flowers.
Very
And
beautiful message.
can I
Yes.
give one short last message, which I think is very important, which is the meaning of linga and yoni. These are Sanskrit words. And everything is expressed in those, the meaning of those words, because yoni means sacred place, and this is indicating the female genitals. Lingam means pillar of light or pillar of consciousness, indicating the male genitals. So if we can really understand the meaning of these Sanskrit words, we have the tantric heritage there, so potent, right in front of us. And we can start diving into that meaning and really living and experiencing that. Because if a man can experience his genitals as a pillar of light and consciousness, what a gift he is giving and receiving through that. And if the woman can really experience her genitals as a sacred place, what a gift she is giving and receiving through that. And then when these are blended together, the male and the female, wow, that is God in action.
Thank
Yes.
you so much. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I feel that from these last answers, many questions must have, yeah, kind of evaporated, though I can still see there are a few questions which people have written. We are taking time now, so not for this session, but this is just the first session of our summit, and there are many more speakers to come. So we are noting down your questions, and we will take up these questions with our next speakers. So stay tuned in, stay connected, and thank you so much, Sarita and Suta, for bringing so much light and wisdom and personal experience to this subject, which is, yes, I won't say it's a taboo. It's not a taboo. Yes,
This
so thank you so much. Yes, it is past.
vast subject, big
Yes, it's a
subject.
vast, yes, yes, it's a very vast subject. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us. Our next session today is at 7 p.m. Indian time, which is on pornography, harms and solutions by Dr. Gail Dines and Samantha. You can find the link on the Access link page, which you already have. So please stay tuned in, and thank you again, Sarita and Suta, for joining us here.